Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn and Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn and Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. I'm joined today by Simone Kay. Simone is the founder of Simone Kay Stained Glass, a firm that makes stained glass panels that are made to order using traditional medieval techniques, including etching, sandblasting, and kiln firing. What's unique about Simone is how she's aligned her professional career with her love of art, pivoting from a successful career path in office administration to dedicating her life to her craft. And be sure to listen to the end, where Simone shares with us how she's leveraging her social media presence to make more people aware of her work and to attract new customers. So whether you're interested in knowing more about the art of stained glass making, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Welcome, Simone Kay, to the Inside Kingston podcast. Simone, I'm really excited about this conversation because whilst I appreciate the beauty of stained glass pieces, and I've seen them in places like churches and cathedrals, I must confess that I have very little understanding of the process that goes into making them. So it's really great to get a chance to speak to somebody with your experience so you can sort of educate us on this topic. So to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So Simone, where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Teddington.
Right, so very locally.
Yeah, I was born in Wimbledon, actually, by mistake, because Kingston Hospital was full.
Wow.
And my mum had to rush to Wimbledon to Nelson's Hospital. It was a Nelson's home. And I actually did have leaded lights in my home in Teddington, which are leaded lights are like stained glass windows. We had a red border and clear glass leaded lights to see out through. And I used to look through the red glass in the corners for ages and see the red world go by. And then if you moved your eyes into the clear part of the stained glass, everything became green. So I was always playing with visuals, even as a child.
That's amazing. So it probably had an influence in you before you even noticed what stained glass was as a form of art.
Yeah. And I used to draw as well as a child because I used to hide under the table and draw as a kind of peaceful little den.
That's amazing. So Simone, what did you study at college?
I actually was at Thames Valley Grammar School, so it became a sixth form college while I was there, and I was already very interested in artwork. And I said to myself, I want to be an artist. I want to be a real artist. And so I did that, and then we moved to Richmond College, and I did a BTEC in art, which was like a pre-foundation course, and then I applied to Kingston Uni. That's what it was, Kingston Polytechnic at the time, and they said to me, "We are offering you a place, but we want you to have a year off to go and get a year's worth of experience, and we'll see you next year."
Right.
Which actually I don't know why they did that to me. I think I was a bit innocent. So I actually did a bit of travelling. I went and lived in a kibbutz in Israel for a few months. So that was interesting, learning about a different way of life, sort of more community. And then I worked in an office where they sent me on a course to learn touch typing and all the skills to be a accounts. I can't remember what they were called, but it was Yellow Pages who I worked for. So I learnt about typography and sort of setting out the lead letters in sets. So for printing, and it was before even word processors. Word processors were first starting to come in with that golf ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't need Tipex anymore. Well, I think, yes, you did need Tipex, yeah. Anyway, I did that, and then I was sad because I upset the firm I worked for, who thought, oh, great, she's a fantastic account executive. She's going to go really far. They sent me on the touch typing, so I learned all those office skills and sort of account skills. And then I was like, yeah, well, bye now. I'm off to art college. And they gave me a wonderful present, and I left, which was a book of photography.
Wow.
Which I've still got. It's a beautiful book. Anyway, and then I went and did my foundation course at Kingston, and the head of my foundation was Keith New, who worked on the first contemporary stained glass in England, which was at Coventry Cathedral. And he was one of the young ones. John Piper and Patrick Rentins also worked on those windows, who, if you're in the stained glass world, you know who they are. Anyway, Keith New was lovely, and I found a box of glass in a drawer, and I was like, what is this? This reminds me of when I was a child.
Wow.
Can I play with it? And they said, yes, you can, but we're not teaching it anymore. We're not teaching stained glass or anything. So I just played with it, not properly using lead or copper foil or anything. And then I went, after my foundation, to Reigate School of Art, where Keith, what's his name, Ray Bradley, was teaching stained glass. And so it was called Stained Glass and Mural Design, and it was about learning the traditional methods of making a stained glass window, making mosaics, using tesserae tiles and smalti. And we also had a chance to make metal sculptures to install our stained glass panels in, which was brilliant. So you learnt welding and tapping and dyeing, which is making screws and grubs. I don't know whether you know what they are, but anyway. And it was very nice, but it was very sort of like being in a country village attitude. And I was much more excited and sort of wanted to stay late at college and things. And what happened was, someone from Chelsea School of Art came to our degree, and they said to me and my colleague, do you want to come to Chelsea School of Art? Because we seem to have lost the traditional techniques of making stained glass. We've gone a little bit wild. We've forgotten a lot. And so we were like, yeah, we're coming. And that was very exciting. And at the time I lived in Kew Gardens anyway. Not actually in Kew Gardens, around the corner from it.
That sounds amazing, Simone. And there's quite a bit in your story there that I want to unpack throughout this conversation. There's one bit of it, though, that I wouldn't mind sort of touching upon now, because I think it would be really important for our younger listeners who are perhaps still at university and trying to find their way and their career and, you know, the thing they're passionate about. So tell me a little bit about the fact that art obviously stayed with you, even though you not only went to live in a kibbutz in Israel, which must have been a fantastic experience, but also actually you were thriving in an office-based environment. I mean, if you wanted to, it seems like you could have made a great career out of that. Just tell us a little bit about how you felt or what your mindset was that brought you back so firmly to say, no, I'm actually going to go to art school like I intended to when I first applied to it.
Okay, so I think the creativity was bubbling up inside me the whole time. I couldn't hold it down. And I felt like the thing that upset me the most was that there was a lady in the office who came in every day from Woking. At the time, the office was in Richmond. And what happened was her, all she'd talk about is the holiday she was going on. She saved up for it. And every other day she would talk about it, what she was going to do, where she was going, doing all the research. I can't even remember where she was going. Anyway, and just before this great holiday, her mum died. And actually, it was absolutely devastating for everyone in the office. And I had lost, who had I lost? I think my grandma, my own nanny sort of thing. So, but she was old. So this was a tragedy and a shock. And I just thought, hold on a sec, is this my family now? Because I'm in this office with these people and I'm hearing their stories. And they were, to be honest, quite normal in inverted commas. My upbringing was quite unusual, really. I think my mum was very green, as in she would wash out plastic bags and hang them on the line and save all the milk bottle tops, and sort of starting to get an awareness of resources and pollution. And this was a long time ago. Obviously, I was brought up in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 1960, and in fact, I had my 60th birthday this year in the Rose Theatre Gallery, where I had got an exhibition on.
Oh, happy birthday! Belated birthday there, Simone.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, so I think I was just a bit unusual to be in the office, and what happened was I had about 3 months. I went back for my interview, and obviously I got into art college, and I had 3 more months or so before, and I said to the firm, I'm leaving now. And what I did was something called temping. I don't know whether temping is still around, where you go into offices and you get given a sort of set amount of work.
Yeah.
Like going through figures, or it was interesting in the way that now I'm running a business. I can, obviously computers weren't around, so everything was handwritten or typed and then corrected with Tipex. And but what I liked was meeting a whole wide variety of people who worked in these offices. Like, I worked for Smith's Food Group for a while, which was round the corner from where I lived in Kew. And it was near Christmas time. And that was the best place to be just before Christmas, because they gave us carrier bags with nuts and crisps and all sorts of weird and wonderful snacks. That was nice. And the people were lovely. And also people really appreciated you. So you never got into the kind of office politics where everyone knows each other. Oh, don't go and see her on a Monday because she's in a mood, or anything like that. It was, you were fresh. You were a fresh person in, and you opened, I think you gave people a little bit of hope. I always dressed not weird, but I never dressed too conventionally, really. I liked bright colours and nice. Well, I was going to be an art student anyway, so I was practicing. And to get for my hairdressing appointments, I used to go to a hairdresser's in Bond Street. I've forgotten what they're called, but Vidal Sassoon. And I was a student, as in the student haircutters used to cut your hair for like £1.50 or something. And so, but the proper hairstylists would come and correct their mistakes. And once I left there with literally half an inch of hair because it had to be corrected so much.
That's amazing. Simone, I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think that context as to what went through in people's mindsets at different points in their career. I think that's really useful for a whole bunch of our listeners who are, even if they're sort of mid-career, career changes type thing. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's bring this conversation to the present, if we may. Tell us a little bit about your business today.
Okay, so I actually do. I mean, I know this is going to sound hippie, but I've got an affirmation. I'm so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. Mm-hmm. And what that really means is that, yes, I've got a shop. The shop is where I live as well, so that it's equivalent to the front room being my studio. And of course, I've been collecting glass since about 1986. Wow. So I have got a lot of supplies, and also because I've been here for 23 years, other glass shops have shut. Friends of mine who have retired, or mainly retired, and so I've bought their materials. So I've got plenty of materials to get on with, which is wonderful. And also, I face embellish, which I call face embellishing, but you might call it face painting, although because I'm mainly doing adults, it's sort of around the eyes, it's enhancing people's faces. I often don't get paid for it, but I do this thing where I glitter people's faces at social gatherings in the old days when we used to be able to meet. Where you glitter, I've discovered the best glitter on earth, and then I found out that they'd stopped making it, and I phoned the company in America and I was like, why have you stopped making this? It's the best glitter on earth. And they said, oh, it's not popular in America. So I sought out and bought about 300 of these bottles, and I've been using them for the last 10 years. They're still fine. They go hard, but what it is the glitter is in a beautiful gel, and it goes hard on your skin like a little dot. I don't use much of it because it can tighten your skin a little bit. And a little dot, 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 and it's become kind of like a tribal look that Seething Wells festivals have adopted, and other fairs and festivals. So during the summer and when fairs and festivals are on, I'm face painting. But the other thing about that, which I know this is nothing to do with business, but when you say to a lady or a man, have a look in this mirror, they'll go, oh no, oh please no, I never look in my mirror. And then you put these little silver dots on, 6 or 9, and then you show them the mirror and they go, oh, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Yet it's exactly the same face that I asked you to look at 1 second ago. So I tried that as an experiment during the festival at Glastonbury, to show people a mirror and then to put dots on and then show them the mirror. And it really was like an awakening for me that just doing that is a really nice thing to do. So I've carried on doing that. Not sure whether in this new world order I'll ever do that again, but I won't throw those. I also use biodegradable glitter powder now, which I started using about 4 years ago when I first heard about the microplastics in the water. And I invested in a whole big box of different colours, beautiful biodegradable glitter powder, and I've stored my other glitter powder away because one day I'm going to capture it in some sort of plastic resin or sort of nail paint on a painting, all with this other beautiful glitter, but because I don't want it to go down the sink. So I always say to people, peel off your glitter dots and put them in the bin rather than down the sink. So that's 2 of my incomes, and then teaching is the other one. I've taught privately in our studio shop, but it's quite small. It's very small. I can't teach 10 people here, so that's why. And I also, when I finished art college, I decided 2 things were my kind of pledges. One was whenever you walk down a street, you want to see a bit of stained glass in someone's front door, or you want to see artwork because it lifts people's spirits. Otherwise, it can be very depressing and boring. And then the other one was to teach in adult education, because that's affordable for everyone, and that everyone should have a chance to make their own windows. So I only teach hobby. I'm not teaching people to become professionals, because I say to people, go to art college and learn it. Go and do a degree course. Now the only degree course is, I think, in Swansea, they do contemporary stained glass as a degree course.
It's pretty clear that there's a lot that goes into the process of getting glass to become a stained glass piece that we obviously get the chance to admire. And whilst I've been speaking with you, I of course have the privilege of just going on Google and looking at some of your pieces. And they're just absolutely beautiful. Now, a lot of our listeners would have heard of the Chihuly exhibition that happened recently at Kew Gardens. Here at our company, we took all of our clients to go to Kew and actually have a wander around and get to know more about those pieces. So I think the listeners' knowledge of stained glass has been, as an art form, has been enhanced over the last few months because of that. But where could folks go here in Kingston to see some of your work?
Okay. You can make an appointment with the mayor and go in the mayor's parlour, because 3 mayors who left, so historically, Yogan Yoganathan was the first mayor who commissioned us, and the Rotary Club paid for that window, and that's got etching, which I didn't talk about. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you every single method. Where else? Well, if you walk around the streets and you see a pretty stained glass window in the front door, more than likely about 90% of them I've made, unless it's sort of made in the 40s, because we did have a lot of stained glass historically, but the more contemporary looking ones I've done. Because I didn't prepare this answer. St Anne's Church, Kingston Hill, when you can start going back to churches, and also Holy Cross School Chapel. But I think you need permission to go in there. But my brain is not.
Well, that's all right. That already gives our listeners at least a bit of a map as to where they could proactively go and have a look at some of these pieces in and around Kingston. Simone.
Yeah,
So,
Mill Street. There's a few in Mill Street.
All right, yeah.
But
so
yeah, in the autumn, whatever the weather and whatever the thing is, I am definitely going to do it this year. Which is, I'm going to have a few days where I'm going to ask everyone who's got our stained glass windows to put the lights on early evening, because it's dark outside in the autumn. And then I'm going to produce a little leaflet which you can come and pick up, or you can take a photo of, or it can be on your phone. And then you'll go on a little walk in the streets and see the windows lit up.
Oh, what a great idea. That sounds really a lot of fun. Simone, let me ask you this. I've heard that you never leave the house without something to sort of sketch on. And from a marketing perspective, I've also noticed on your social media profiles, I think in particular Instagram, that you share quite a lot of your drawings and watercolors. For the benefit of our listeners who are business owners, could you tell us how you think about your use of social media to highlight your work and attract new customers?
Yes. Okay, so every so often I do post what stained glass I'm working on, because it's so visual, and Instagram is so visual. But I forgot about that project. How could I forget? I can't forget, because I'm on year 5. I set myself a task of doing 1 drawing a day, and the reason for that was because I found that the only drawing I was doing was when I had to do a design for a stained glass window, that little sketch I was telling you about, where you draw to scale. And also, whenever I went on holiday, I would do colour postcards and send them back to family and friends. And then in 2015, in December, I said to myself, right, I'm going to do a drawing a day in a little moleskin book, and I'm going to post it on social media, on Instagram. So it kind of wasn't meant to be business-like, but when a lady saw my drawings in the book, she said, please have an exhibition at the Corner House Theatre in Tolworth. And then I thought, oh no, because I want all the drawings to stay in the books. I met with a printer and he told me about giclée prints. So then I started doing giclée prints and had an exhibition in January 2017. And then she asked me to come back the next year, and then the next year. And then this year, I was asked to come to the Rose Theatre Gallery and exhibit, which is still up actually, but when the theatre opens again in a couple of months, people will be able to go there, because I think they'll leave it up for a little bit longer, because it was meant to come down on April the 3rd. And from there, I have had sales of giclée prints. But obviously, that's not my main work. My main work is making windows. But it's also very, very. I mean, it's historically going to be very interesting, because I was drawing bands and going to places like the Lamb Pub in Surbiton, where they had music nights on a Sunday night, and also the Cricketers, which is now closed, where they had open mic night. And a lot of my friends are musicians, because it's a really nice, it's like art, but anyway, it's really great drawing musicians, because they stay still for 3 songs. And so I was just looking for things to draw. And so I draw like a pear, an orange. I'll draw my stained glass that I'm working on, or anything really.
And you've been keeping that up for 5 years?
Yeah, I'm on my 5th year.
Oh, that's amazing, Simone. That's really interesting.
I asked Moleskine to sponsor me, but they kind of didn't get it, because it's very expensive actually. The books are like £15 each, and you only get 30 pages. Although, to be honest, I don't drink alcohol, so the money I'm saving on drinking alcohol, I'm spending on Moleskine books.
There we go. Sounds like a better investment to me from your point of view anyway. So that's really cool. That's really cool. Simone, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
So when you first set up, make a business plan for like 5 years, and that helps control your out of control thinking and worrying. You don't have to worry. And the other thing is trusting that there will be enough money. Somehow it does come along at the last minute when you think, how am I going to pay rent this time? I think also to do the work, to actually do the work. I mean, even though, because it's like artwork, you can't just say, oh, that's it, I'm setting up in business and I'm gonna. And also, actually, 21st century, I've discovered Etsy, because I make a calendar every year, which I've made since the 90s. But my son directed me to put it on Etsy, and sales have gone really well, and it's been global rather than just local people who know about the moon calendar. So I think Etsy and a website. The thing about my website is my Tumblr blog is the most up-to-date work I've done, and you can kind of scroll back through and kind of get a picture of what we do. The website itself has got a lot of information and a lot of pictures, but to be honest, they are quite old. There's about 8 years old or 10 years old. So we have got much more up-to-date windows, really, but they seem relevant. And so I've just left that. What else? Oh, Excel. my accountant taught me the headings for doing my accounts. So I do all my own accounts, and then I just take an Excel on a little key drive to the accountant once a year, and he just extrapolates all the information that he needs to. But I mean, we've had a couple of knockbacks actually, not just deaths. And I mean, there are family, there have been a few family kind of tragedy crises, but one was that I had to sign a contract for a massive job in Bayswater where I actually employed people. So I got employer's liability. I think it was in 2008. I absolutely was diligent about keeping up with all the work and my staff, and I paid them ahead of time. And then what was happening, and what we had to do was we had to renovate walls and walls of stained glass. And it was where Lily Langtry had a theatre. I don't know whether you know it. It's in Bayswater. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be turned into this guest invest hotel or something. I can't remember exactly, but trying to block it out of my mind. Anyway, I was owed £13,000. It went into a receivership and I got £3.21. I didn't even cash the check. I was so upset, and I was actually my body crumpled, and I thought, what's the point in being in business? I'm not doing it anymore. I actually said that, but luckily my accountant said, look, you know, there are extenuating circumstances with HMRC and blah, 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 so you don't have to pay tax and blah, 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 blah. I didn't actually apply for any benefits or anything. I just healed myself. I carried on teaching because in adult education, because that was part of, because it's very nice. You've got a little community there. And when we thought we were rich, we made the most beautiful leaflets and business cards, and we actually made them and paid for them and everything. And so it kind of upgraded our look a little bit. And I just now don't trust businesses like these huge businesses that, to be honest, the directors set up in business the next day with a different name, and they didn't have to suffer. But all the artisans who were working on the restoration of the hotel were owed about millions, I'd say. And you can hear I'm upset now.
Yeah, awful.
I mean, it was fun, and it was really interesting going into London, taking my little tool bag, very carefully taking out a piece of glass that was broken, which had kiln-fired painting, sellotaping it up, so and copying the shape, cutting it in situ, because I can do repairs in situ. That's the other thing that's kept me going, actually, which I don't love doing, but people's broken front doors, I can repair them in situ, or I can get a glazier to take it out, which is giving them work. But I don't employ people now because of that setback. I know it's selfish, but I just don't want to go through that again. So my glazier is self-employed, and he works independently to me and gets paid separately.
And I don't think it sounds selfish, Simone. I think, actually, having heard that, what I take from it is actually a bit of inspiration, even for our own business here. It seems to me that you, over the years, have, as you well said, done the work. And I absolutely love that phrase, because I'm a big believer in that. The beauty of things is in actually doing the work. And you have not only done the work in the past in various different ways, as you've described it to us throughout this conversation, but even sort of now in 2020, you've got Instagram going on, you've got a website going on, you've got a blog going on, which just shows that, again, it doesn't matter if the medium changes with regards to how to get your message out there and how to do business day to day. It's still all about doing the business or doing the marketing or doing the work, as you said. So that's what I take from that. So hats off to you for actually just doing the work over all these years. Simone, when you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
My children.
That sounds lovely, actually.
Yeah, I know it's a bit cliched, but my daughter's an amazing illustrator that will blow your mind. She works with black and white, but because I was, already an artist when they were born, I would kind of be working on something and give them materials, paints, pens. So she was drawing from a very young age, actually. And then my son is a creative art director who has got a very distinct graphics look to his work, and they both are self-employed work. I mean, there is not a lot of money in this type of life, but there's a lot of joy and creativity.
Simone, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
I must admit, #drawing one a day did take over a little bit, and I did get definitely I got back the money it cost me to put on the exhibition, and for my 5 years of doing it, I wanted to go big with an exhibition, but I'm actually a little bit, tiny bit knocked back by this, little period we're going through, which started 2 weeks ago, but I'm already scratching my head about it, thinking, oh, shall I do that? Oh, I might not do that anymore. So I think keeping a media online presence is where I'm going to be. And my daughter said to me, why don't you sell glass items on Etsy? Which I have not really explored. I've only really explored doing the moon calendars because actually it does take a while out of your day when you get an order to then have to fulfill it, to fill in the envelope and, write a little note and then go to the post office and send it off. So that has to be factored into it, really. It's not just about making the object and then getting beautiful photographs. That's the other thing, is taking really good photographs of your work if it's going to have an online presence. I'm going to carry on being generous, I think, as well, and sort of supporting, not necessarily financially, but supporting where I can other things like the mayor's charities. And I got a ticket to go to the mayor's ball, but it's been postponed. And the other thing is that I haven't mentioned is that I started running workshops, gluing glass onto a base sheet, glass on glass abstract pieces that anybody can do, and you don't have to be an artist. Artists have been on these workshops, and I ran them from the Museum of Futures, which is a kind of pop-up shop, because my shop's not big enough, but I could have up to 10 people. And that was a learning curve, because the first one I ran, I worked it out financially, and I'd actually made a loss of about £10 per person. And so the next one I ran, I increased the cost of it to be more realistic. I was being too generous the first time, and it was completely full of people, of course, because it was so cheap. And then when I looked around at what other people were charging, I realised it was, just like 2 pints of beer.
Yeah. But again, it speaks volumes to this business of doing the work, doesn't it, Simone? So do the work, then, of course, review the outcome, reiterate, and then do the work again, which is what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Simone, as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So what do you do to relax outside of the office?
Okay, so obviously my drawing one a day is actually relaxing for me because my body loves drawing. But I do read sometimes. I find it quite difficult to read, to concentrate, but I bought these books written by Joshua Humphreys, so they're really funny. They're comedy novels, and I met him in Australia. I took my daughter to Australia to meet my aunt who retired. So I do travel. I used to travel a lot. I used to every year meet my cousin from America somewhere in Europe, just so that we could meet each other and we weren't always having to travel all the way. I wasn't always having to go to New York to meet him. And so I really love traveling because I really love seeing different things and then painting them. I like people. I like listening to music. I like live music. So in this new world order, I've been listening to a lot of Facebook Live music. Although I'm getting slightly tired of it. It's a bit tiring to just keep going. I just want to switch off. I love going to saunas. I love the leisure centre, the Kingfisher, shut last in October, I think it was, or November, because of a problem with the roof. So I'm looking forward to all of that coming back. I like to do yoga as well every day. And I've been doing that on YouTube while the leisure centres aren't open.
Yeah, I've got to say, hats off to all of these very creative folks that have put their fitness lessons, yoga lessons, and music output all sort of on live Facebook events, Instagram events, YouTube events. That's really helped me and my family also keep sort of busy and keep fit in this period which we're living through, this coronavirus business. So no, definitely hats off to all those folks who are putting good content out there on that basis. Finally, Simone, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Okay, so I've got a website which is stainedglass-artists.co.uk. Mm-hmm. That's the main historic piece of research that people can do. I am on Instagram at Simone Kay with 5 number 2s, which is Simone Kay 22222. Because the girl who set me up seemed to have left her finger on the number 2, which is fine. And so that Instagram is my main one that I post on every day. And then I've got obviously Facebook, and I've actually got about 6 pages on Facebook because I've kind of categorized each different thing I do. I mean, once a month I run a radio show on Kingston Green Radio, which is from Kingston Environment Centre. So I've got Sims Green Roundup, Sparkle Face Art Transformation, which is my face embellishing, Simone Kay Stained Glass, and Simone Kay mainly.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure I add a link to these resources on the show notes. Simone, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.